Welcome in, everybody. Joe Quills here with you. Sorry for the delay there in starting and having to go two songs in tonight because your boy ended up at the last minute realizing that he wasn't ready. But we're here and we're ready to go here on this Thursday night. Hope everybody's had a great night out there, a great day. And we're going to get to the news here. We're going to get to some interesting news we have here. I do. Oh, okay. So I think okay. All right. So sorry, I got a little confused there because things are a little screwy on my stream manager page right now. Um, okay, whatever. But anyways, hope everybody's doing well out there. Let's get this show started here on this Thursday night here. As you can tell, I did change things up a little bit tonight. Whoops. No, that's not what I wanted. Hold on. That's not it either. Hold on. All right, this isn't all right. I got to play around a little bit. So let me disappear here for a second. You'll still hear me. As you can see from our opening tonight, we had a new opening tonight and a new welcome screen here. Got a little bored, played around with the AI a little bit, and ended up with the new Joe Quill Show welcome screen. So uh, we'll be using this going forward, and you'll be seeing this a little bit here. It isn't completely perfect. The Flyers logo is good, the Eagles logo is good, the Phillies logo, meh. Sixers logo doesn't have the 13 stars there. It has the Jewish star, the 6-pointed star. I couldn't care less. It's AI getting around copyrights probably and stuff like that. So that'll be something that you'll be seeing at the start of the show. And also, we got a new also eligible card here. And that will be, and as you can see here, Saturday mornings on the Q&A Sports Zone, basically the same channels I'm streaming on right now, every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And get your horse racing news, get your handicapping, get your race selections, and whatever else comes up on that show. So little AI stuff that I was doing today because I was like, you know what? I didn't do this yet. So that's a brand new one. This is one that AJ hasn't even seen yet because it's like I sent him something else today. Actually, I could go with this as well. So let me show you this screen here as we go back to me here, and I will reappear. There we go. So this is what I created, which I may use as well. Racing news, handicapping analysis, top selections. I like it. I may use that. Who knows? But we'll see. I was tinkering around a little bit, and next thing you know, I got myself a few different things here. So I probably will be playing around with it a little more over the next couple of days and weeks, because I'm just goofy like that. But so when we get to the Preakness talk, when I give the official update on that, you get to see that one. So whatever. But I'm not ready to promote that yet. So pretend you didn't see it. But anyways, Montreal leading Buffalo 6-3. And this may be a case of Buffalo had some goaltending issues, but I think it's also a matter of Buffalo starting to hear, oh my God, we might win a Stanley Cup. Yeah. But, I don't really talk about hockey too much, but we are going to talk a little bit tonight because the Edmonton coach, Chris Knobloch, was canned today. We'll get into that. we'll get into the NCAA making a major change to college soccer on the D1 men's level. Now, people will say that it was because of, giving the student athletes more times to learn and more time to recover and blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. I thought about it as I was printing the article, reading the article, everything like that. I'm thinking otherwise. I'll tell you why in a little bit. There was that commercial here locally, and I forget, 15 minutes early is on time is 15 minutes late, or something like that. There was this this cleaning company or whatever, and if I could find, I'm not going to search it tonight, but basically early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable, something to that effect. But we'll see. I don't know what it is exactly, so, but I do hope everybody's doing well out there tonight here. And it's also schedule release day. Oh, it's also the final day I wear this year. Boston Sox cack. And I had to rush to put it on. That's one of the reasons why you got two songs to begin the show tonight. The usual song, and then an AI song because, because I was doing a couple of different things. So we're doing getting to wear this shirt a couple of times this week and have some fun. And, we're going to have some, we have some fun here. So why not? So, but we're going to begin with the NFL schedule because no more leaks until next May. And hopefully the NFL will stop these leaks. Now, I can understand if you want to promote an international game because I just think that maybe, you want to make things interesting, that sort of thing. But even today, it's like, oh, by the way, the Eagles are going to be playing this team in week 3, and they're going to play this team in week 2. And then 5:30, NBC 10 here in Philadelphia decides, oh, the whole schedule's available. Now, if I'm the NFL, and if I'm ESPN, because ESPN operates NFL and NFL Network, I want to have everybody tuned into my shows. I mean, I remember when they started to do these release shows, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon they did it, because I think it was before we moved from Upper Darby to Center City, because I distinctly remember being in Upper Darby playing the horses when I had a split shift, because I don't feel like going home. I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing that. Let's go to Turf Club for a couple of hours. So the thing is, it just seems like more and more we're leaking these games out. And, it just seems a little weird that the game that we most want to know who's starting off the season was one of the last to be leaked. Because there were sources, but how good of a source it was, I'm not sure. But they did say on there, oh, by the way, they said last night, the Patriots are going to play Seattle in a Super Bowl rematch to start the season. Well, I think Chicago playing in Seattle would have been more interesting, but that's just me. But, because Chicago is an up-and-coming team in terms of making that final step towards getting back to the Super Bowl for the first time in however many years it is. But you do have these matchups, and we both, Mike and I both thought Monday night, it's going to be Chicago. Because we said, well, it can't be the Rams, it can't be San Francisco because they're playing in Australia. Then it won't be this and it won't be that, So we settled on Chicago, but the problem is NFL decided, let's do a rematch. Now, if this was a more exciting game last February, then yeah, let's have the rematch right away. But instead of having that rematch, in past years, because this has been a trend over the last couple of years, because the Eagles played Kansas City twice. The year they played each other in the Super Bowl, and then, by the way, they ended up meeting up the next year. Because I think as rare as those two teams played each other in the first 45 years, first 40 years of the Chiefs' existence, from 1960 to 2000, when everybody was scheduled to play each other every 4 years in conference. The fact that they were always meeting up with the Chiefs every other year when they added that 17th game, you had to start thinking, and maybe my Super Bowl prediction will be Eagles and Chiefs, because that would mean that they will play for the 6th consecutive year, but we won't get into that. It's too early for that stuff. And if somebody is telling you who's going to the Super Bowl, who's winning the Super Bowl, wins and losses and stuff like that, it's way too soon. But we do have the full schedule here, and it is going to start on, hold on, let me get this all set. It's going to start on Wednesday, September the 9th, because remember, Labor Day is late this year. It's as late as you can get it. It's on September 7th. So they're going to begin on the 7th, a rematch of Super Bowl 60. Now, I just think that this is something that could have been avoided. I mean, I don't think this is worthy of a rematch in week 1. I would have rather seen the Bears, but that's just me. But always, even if you're watching after the fact, feel free to comment. So New England will go west to the Pacific Northwest for the home opener on September 9th. Now, it's the third time that the regular season opener will be a repeat of the previous season's Super Bowl matchup, the last coming in 2016 when the Broncos beat the Panthers after defeating them in Super Bowl 50 earlier that year. Crazy thing is I don't remember that game. Probably because that was the first game after Peyton Manning retired, but now Seattle will look to do the same to coach Mike Vrabel in New England. 21 defending champs have played in the opener, have gone 16-5. It's the 12th Super Bowl rematch in the following season, and the 4th straight season to feature one. Yeah, twice were Eagles and Chiefs, and it's a little bit easier now because, if you're the first place team in the AFC East, and you're the first place team in the NFC West, and it's that rotation where, okay, even though we're supposed to play every 4 years, in order to move things along, we had that one mirror matchup, as I like to call it, where, okay, well, we got to have that fifth AFC NFC game. So, but they do have but it is the 12th time it's happened. And the defending champions have an 8-3 record in the previous meeting. I think that's the previous meetings. Okay, 8 plus 3 is 11. This is the 12th. Yeah, but so it'll mark the 12th Super Bowl rematch. Now, Hans Schroeder, an NFL executive, told the Associated Press, yes, it was definitely a key data point for us. We saw what a big draw that was, and so we just thought it was really fun. I think it'd been a decade since we did Denver and Carolina Super Bowl 50 and came back in week 1 the next year. We thought it was a fun way to start the season again with New England and Seattle coming off that Super Bowl. Certainly a ton to play for. Let our fans see if they play again. Well, hopefully, for the sake of competitiveness, let's hope for a better game. Because now, granted, we could argue, well, Drake May was injured. Okay. But I also think, Seattle's defense was cranked up. They were pretty much unstoppable last postseason. They were pretty much unstoppable most of the second half of the year, and probably even the whole year if you really want to. But I still think that the game stunk. The Super Bowl stunk. Well, not for me. I did make some money off of it, but I just think that I just think Seattle and Chicago could. But enough about that. But it's a rare Wednesday opener. A rare Wednesday night opener to accommodate the game in Australia, which is Thursday night US, Friday morning Australia time. Now, the contest between the Rams and the 49ers take place the following day, September 10th for US audiences, and will be one of a record 9 international games. But it will be September the 11th there in Australia. Now, the last time the NFL started on a Wednesday, that was back in 2012. And it wasn't because of Australia or anything else. It was because they were accommodating President Barack Obama's speech at the DNC the following day. And, that's, and the thing is, I think that was actually back when, if I'm not mistaken, the NFL started the week before Labor Day, if I'm not mistaken. But Kenneth Walker, the MVP of the Super Bowl, who signed with the Chiefs, he returns to Seattle October 25th. The Dolphins are set to visit Malik Willis's new former team, the Packers, on December 20th. Dolphins go to Denver on December 6th. Jalen Waddle will face his old team. He's down with Denver. He'll face Miami that day. Fernando Mendoza, his first game will be the 13th of September against Miami if he starts, because the coaches have said, the front office has said, we prefer not to play him right away. The Monday Night Football schedule on ESPN features every 25-26 division winner and playoff team. It includes Eagles and Dallas on a Monday night showdown in Week 7. 2 games featuring the Seahawks against the Bears and the Cowboys. Bears Week 8, Cowboys Week 13. Derek May versus Patrick Mahomes. That is Derek May, right? Drake May. It began with a D. I was close. So, but you have all kinds of different days that the schedule's going to be on this year. So, May and Mahomes will show down Patriots and Chiefs in Week 15. Seattle plays 6 primetime games, most in a season since 2000. In the year 2000. Sorry, had to do it. Where am I? There it is. One of those home games in prime time for Seattle is going to be a rematch against the Rams in Week 16. They met in the NFC Championship game in January. They played twice in the final 3 weeks of 2020. Plus, they played twice in the final 3 weeks of 2026. That's what he's trying to say, but words are hard. Now, the Thanksgiving Day games, we already know about Eagles and Cowboys. That was at 4:30. Bears and Lions will play at 1 o'clock. And the third game will be the Chiefs going to Buffalo at 8:20. Of course, that's a game where you should put the Jets and the Cardinals together if they played each other this year. Because nobody's going to watch it because everybody's going to be all tryptophaned out. And we have a triple header on Christmas, which falls on a Friday this year. Packers, Bears, Bills, Broncos, Rams, Seahawks. So we have that. So the first Sunday night matchup of the year will be the Giants and the Cowboys on September 13th. And the first Monday Night Football game between the Broncos and the Chiefs on the 14th. That is in Denver, I believe. The final game of the regular season is January 10th. Brendan, welcome in. So the regular season ends on January 10th this year. Just over a month later, it'll be Super Bowl 61. We're getting closer to Super Bowl 69, baby. And Super Bowl 61 is on February 14th. Yep, Valentine's Day in Inglewood, California. Now, also, it's the first time that weak-ass Americans have the day off the next day because they can't say no to a drink, and the next thing you know, they're waking up the next morning with a major fucking hangover. But the one thing I will say is, this is just coincidence, but the NFL is eventually going to make it that, we have to do it because we have too many alcoholics in our country who are so hungover they can't go to work the next day. Suck it up, Buttercup. Get to work. That's what I have to say, but that's just me. Somebody who hasn't had a drink in however many years, not because of alcoholism, but because I just chose to. But, so you get the idea. So, but it'll be interesting. This Super Bowl will be even more interesting because I think we're going to have a lot of couples breaking up because there's a lot of materialistic women out there. Okay? There's a lot of women where Men might have to say, wasn't Christmas 6 weeks ago? Wasn't Christmas 6 weeks ago? And me, I'm always the person, this is probably why I'm single. Because I'm telling guys, hey, say this isn't, but also think about this. And this is probably, you see how I tick. You understand that what I'm saying is kind of a joke, but kind of not. I will tell you this. As we are 9 months from today is the Super Bowl. And 9 months from today is Valentine's Day. I will say this. I don't want to be around someone who's materialistic to the point where they expect something from you. Well, other than, but, uh, but seriously, I have, if I want to celebrate Valentine's Day with somebody and have it that I'm celebrating with somebody and giving them gifts and the sausage, whatever, but I want to do it because I want to do it. I don't want to give gifts because they expect it. So, and it's, and if I forget to do something, it's not forgetting on purpose. It's just probably so much shit going on that I forget. But yeah, so this should be a real interesting Super Bowl because I wonder if there's going to be something about a month after the Super Bowl where um, dating sites and apps gain membership through the wazoo because of the Super Bowl and women not getting the attention that they wanted on Valentine's Day. I know it's going to happen. I know it. And I'll just be sitting here and say, hey, maybe you were the problem. But we'll see what happens to that. But we do have that, and we also have the Eagles schedule out. And since I am a Eagles fan, and just to remind you, we did win Super Bowl 59. I don't have anything for Super Bowl 52. I never really looked, but it also means I have to get a 1980 flag as well for the 1980 championship. But here's the Eagles schedule. Schedule begins September 13th as the Eagles and the Commies will play a late afternoon game down at the complex. Then you have two games in a row on the road. At Tennessee at a Monday night game in Chicago. At least with the Chicago game, and they did say this in the schedule release video that the Eagles had, because everybody does a schedule release video. Oh, we get to go there in September. We don't go there in December, January, where it's freezing cold. True. Very true. October 4th, the Phillies take on the Rams in a epic rematch. And LA's got to be saying, God, we got to go to Philly again. Oh, well, just the way the rotation is. Then the Eagles go across the pond to take on Jacksonville. But the one thing that you see in that video, and by the way, that Eagles release video, if you cut it down to about 5 minutes, maybe it's worth playing on here. but it's a 13.5-minute video. And I get what they were trying to do. You know, it was symbolism to back to business. Here we go, whatever. But instead, it was just way too long. And the one thing that I think for the most part, it was fairly unscripted. But I think it was Saquon Barkley that said this. And if I'm crediting the wrong guy, then so be it. But, we don't get a bye week after that game in London? No, because a lot of teams have foregone their right to have a bye right after that. And truthfully, even though you're going to be playing in London and probably going to play like shit against Carolina the following week, that bye where it is, I think, is a perfect spot. It's not too heavy on the one side or the other. So, but that's just me. So after that game with Carolina, when they return from jolly old England, they get Dallas on Monday Night Football, which we mentioned before. Then you got Sunday Night Football at Washington. And then you have a Sunday afternoon game with the New York Giants to close out the first half of the season. And then you have a bye week. Then you get – now I'm surprised – now that I'm looking at the schedule, I'm surprised that they did this, but they weren't going to give the Eagles a bye before the Thanksgiving Day game against Dallas. But you end up playing a 4:25 game against Pittsburgh and then having to play Dallas that Thursday. Now, granted, the only issue with that is with Pittsburgh, even though it ain't that much of an issue, you don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back, or is he too busy in his bunker of darkness or whatever the hell he called it? So you know, we'll see what happens with that. Then you have Dallas on Thanksgiving, which we mentioned before. And that's probably going to be – that has the potential to be the most watched regular season game ever, because last year's game, Kansas City and Dallas, was the record. But we'll see. Then after a couple extra days off, they go to Arizona for a 4:05 game, a bridge game against the Cardinals. Then they come back and they play 3 straight. Wow. The Eagles play – no, they don't. Okay, never mind. I was about to say they play 3 straight home games twice, but they don't. But if there's ever an opportunity, if the Eagles are just like meandering, like they were last year, having weeks 14, 15, 16 at home. Now, granted, you're playing Sunday, Saturday, Thursday. You have 0 travel. So this isn't like a 3 games in 12 days where you got to go from point A to point B to point C to point D. You're playing 3 games at home. The NFL schedule makers did the Eagles a solid. Now, granted, the teams aren't necessarily making a solid. It's not having to travel, because you get Indy December 13th. You get Seattle on the 19th, a Saturday late afternoon game, early evening, technically evening or night, because it's 5 o'clock and it's dark at 5 o'clock on the East Coast. And then you got Christmas Eve, a Thursday night, against the Houston And then you have San Francisco out there, January 3rd, week 17, and week 18, either the 9th or the 10th against the Giants, depending on the date and the time, because every game is yet to be determined because they try to group everything so that everybody has a they try to group all the teams that are in playoff position or fighting for a division. They try to keep them at the same time. It's kind of like the way, like, one thing you're going to see with the World Cup this year, and it's been this way in the World Cup for like the last 40 years. So like the last 8-10 go rounds. You do have the opportunity to, you have both matches playing at the same time. So, it isn't like, oh, we're purposely going to lose this game because we don't want this team in the playoffs. But you do have all this stuff here. So that is a rundown of the Eagles schedule, the schedule in general. And my tip to the NFL, please just stop with these leaks. Because what is the purpose of having a schedule release show on ESPN, on NFL Network, wherever, and you're leaking games left and right? Just stop it. It'd be so much better if you didn't do it. Or maybe I'm just too old school with some things, because, in some regards, in some ways, I'm old school in a lot of things, but I'm new school in a lot of things too. But, I just don't like it, but that's enough for that. But so in a little less than 4 months, we'll have regular season football yet again. And maybe the disagreement that the NFL Network and Comcast has is resolved, or I may have to change carriers, which is not a big deal to me because I'm more than happy to switch. But anyway, so do want to say this. A lot of times the NCAA will give you the biggest load of bullshit you ever seen. And I think what they did today kind of gives the idea that they care about student athletes. And in other ways, I don't think they do. I think there was an ulterior motive with what they did. So, but, and I think the fact that it's just Division I soccer that's doing this, and I know, why are you talking soccer? And why are you talking, and breaking news out of Boston, Boston Sox CAC, Phillies win 2-3. They win 3-1 tonight. Kyle Schwarber hit another Schwarber bomb tonight. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, end of the 9th inning, Phillies lead the Red Sox 3-1. That's a win. Put one in the win column for the Fighting Phils. But anyways. And oh, by the way, we get a game back because the Braves lost. But anyways. So the Division I men's soccer season is going to be split between the fall and the spring, with the national tournament moving to the spring starting in 27-28. The NCAA announced that yesterday. The Sports Oversight Committee adopted the legislation, which is subject to review by the Division I cabinet in June. They're going to allow it, So The teams will be allowed to play 18 matches from late August until the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and then up to 10 matches from mid-February until the start of the NCAA tournament. So I don't know how many matches they play in a regular season, but I think it's all oh shit, that's right. It's on. Whoops, wrong one. Wrong remote. So I didn't lie. You told him about me. Let me turn that down. Get some hockey action on here. So I don't know how many matches they play in a regular season, so I think it also allows more matches. So I think it's going to allow more matches, so we'll pretend that's the case. So now there is no indication to restructure women's soccer. Now, I don't know what the women women's professional schedule is going to be like in a couple of years, but one thing to remember is that the MLS for 27-28 is conforming with most of the rest of the world with the schedules of professional soccer. Like, for example, you could go, you go to Premier League, you pull up their schedule or table, whatever term that they use. You check out their schedule, and they start right around August, and they go to May. But also they have all these different, they have like 18 different tournaments as well, but they don't have these tournaments that in college like they do in the pros, but who knows, maybe they work them into it, but who knows. But anyways, so when they say here, and this was from according to the committee, the oversight committee, they said the fall spring schedule would, among other things, reduce time demands and give athletes a more balanced academic and athletic experience. The potential for far fewer midweek games would result in less missed class time, and more recovery time between matches would be provided. Repeat after me. Bullshit. Wait, I got... Here it is. Okay. So I asked this one kid what he thought about about that last statement I just said.
A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit. A bullshit.
So they're just conforming the schedule to match MLS because, oh, by the way, they end up, by the way, they're barely a minute in and VGK's up 1-0 on the Ducks. But anyways, so you're looking at, now you're going to get what they're talking about now. Oh, less miss class time. You got this, you got that. But let's look at things around the United States. MLS is going to an international schedule where it starts in August or September and ends in May or thereabouts. Oh, by the way, they have I think they call it the MLS Super Draft, where, oh, by the way, they draft from those in college. So guess what? Probably around June or July, they're going to have that draft. Oh, by the way, it's right after the season ends. So I don't know about you. I'm calling bullshit, even though, yeah, it should benefit the student athletes. But I think there was an ulterior motive here. I really do. So, you know, now the current schedule is played in a 10 to 13 week fall window with the College Cup taking place in December. So, of course, because you want to play as many conference games as possible so you can then have the tournament and everything, it it has to be condensed. Now, you don't have to condense it. You can play one game a week like you do in most cases. And then, hey, we can take the winter off, especially because a lot of these schools are playing in cold locales like Michigan, Ohio State, if they have soccer teams, but you get the idea. But um, so Jamie Clark of the the coach of the national champion Washington soccer team said, "This is a new era for college soccer. Hopefully, through the new calendar, we can build some positive momentum and create more excitement for our sport." Well, I think you could conceivably have a opportunity to fill in some spots here and there in the calendar because you could play a 3 o'clock game on a Thursday, or if you're playing a Thursday or Friday game, you could play earlier in the day. Some schools probably don't have lights on their. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but um, so we've done a great job under the present model of creating an exciting product and preparing players to be professionals in life and on the field. Now we will be challenged in making the most of this new model. And I think you're going to see, because it mirrors the MLS schedule, they're going to get a feel for the way life is in the MLS internationally, wherever they end up playing. Because, there's still a couple of leagues that don't play the international schedule that most countries play. And some countries, it's just like you can't because it's too cold. But that's why the break for the MLS is going to be longer, because you got a lot of teams in cold weather sites because, oh, by the way, you're playing in localities that don't have any, um, you know, they don't play indoors and all that. And I mean, but conceivably, if they really wanted to, like, for example, Minnesota, even though it may not be ideal with the way American soccer stadiums are built now, where you build them between 15 and 35,000. You have the anomaly. You have Seattle. They play at Lumen Field, and even the bigger matches, they can draw 45, 50,000. When Messi comes to town, they can move it to another stadium. I'm surprised the Union haven't tried to move it to the Link, considering they did that extra stuff there. But let me take a look at the Union schedule here real quick, because I want to see one thing here. Even though the Union are horrible this year, let me see here. Um, Philly is in Miami on May 24th. And August 19th. Now let's just check one other thing here. That's a Wednesday night game. Okay. Okay, that's not feasible because the Phillies will be playing the Marlins at the ballpark. Okay. See, the thing is with some stadiums, like for example, Kansas City, and you're gonna see this with a couple of different teams. They're going to be affected by the World Cup. Like for example, the Phillies, they got some quirky schedules. Actually, they got hit with this quirky schedules both on the road and at home because they play the Mets on a Thursday night. They're off on a Friday, and they play Saturday and Sunday. And that's because, oh, by the way, the World Cup's across the street. So they got to make, you can't have two major security events, and also the Mets because, they are the armpit of America. But you do have all this going on. So, and also when they go to Kansas City, normally you play on Friday and play Friday to Sunday, and Sunday is the getaway day. They're playing Saturday, Sunday, Monday because the World Cup is in Kansas City that Friday. So you do have some teams that are going to be affected by the World Cup and some that aren't. So, but just the way things are, and minor issues that you'll see because of it, but it's all cool. So, but if they're telling you that this issue is solely giving student athletes, an opportunity to be in the classroom a little bit more and this and that, I call bullshit because it's about coordinating with the MLS. But that's just me. And I think over time you are going to see the other divisions conform with the Division I schedule as well, but that's just me. But we'll see what happens. So that is the college news I saw today that was interesting. And now some of these stories are off the beaten path a little bit, and I'm okay with, because I want to, some people will be like rolling their eyes. Oh, Joe's talking soccer. Well, it's going to get worse. I'm talking hockey in a couple of minutes. But hey, you got to get used to my humor as well. But yeah, so I like to tell these stories that are a little off, and not necessarily the off the beaten path a little bit. So just to have some fun, do something a little bit different. And if it leads to somebody joining me, feel free to do so. Now, you can always join me, twitch.tv/Joe Quills. Give me a follow. Give me a subscription as well if you want. As long as it's a follow and you watch me on there, I can get to affiliate on Twitch. So we'll get that done. And next thing you know, be doing even more fun stuff on here. So at least that's how I feel. Now, I did tell you about also eligible and all and that thing I showed, but also just want to let you know I'm going to be live on Saturday morning, and as of right now, AJ will be with me on Saturday, hopefully. And I say hopefully because I'm not going to hold it against somebody or AJ or whatever, because things can change at a moment's notice. So, but we'll be talking about the Preakness, and not gonna lie, we did cut back on coverage this week as compared to the Derby week mainly because Golden Tempo didn't run. Renegade didn't run. It's basically a non. It almost feels like it's not a Triple Crown race, but it is. And also, it's at Laurel Park as well, so you got other things there as well. But we'll be live. We have a full field of 14 in the race, and this year they're at Laurel Park, not Pimlico. Pimlico is going under renovations and reconstruction, and any other word that means building something in beginning with RE, but reconstruct. But anyways, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Probably going to be the format that we had 2 weeks ago, and that will be a looking over all 14 horses in the race, giving thoughts on each horse, and giving out a winner. I'm not going to put it in the notes when I create this show later tonight, or the channel for later tonight. We may take a look at the first race, because the first race at Laurel Park is at 10:30 a.m. So we may look at that race, we may not, but we're definitely going to be looking at the Preakness. So we'll be live beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and hopefully we can get you guys a winner, because it was disappointing that my horse blew a 3-length lead late in the Kentucky Derby. Now, granted, it could be worse. You could be the Atlanta Falcons and giving up a 28-3 lead to the New England Patriots, but I digress. I had to, do my little digs every now and then, because why not? So I did see what am I looking for here? There we go. And we did have a chatter. We did have somebody trying to. Okay, there we go. All right, so we saw this with the fillies. Sometimes you are too successful, and when you don't meet expectations, you lose your job. Even though, for example, Charlie Manuel, it took a little longer because everybody was sucking his dick from winning the 2008 World Series. However, hockey is the type of sport where you might even get canned days after winning a Stanley Cup. I mean, that's how crazy the NHL can be with getting rid of coaches. But the Edmonton Oilers, as you know, were back-to-back runners-up for the Stanley Cup. They lost in the first round this year to Anaheim. Now, a little unfair because they had a ton of injuries. But then again, you see what the Flyers have for injuries. It's like, how are you guys not dead? I mean, one guy had internal bleeding. You had this, you had that. It's like, I don't know how you did it, but and this may be classified as a Kaplering, as I like to call it. And it goes back to when Gabe Kapler was let go of the Phillies after the 2019 season. They could have canned him right after game 162 in 2019, but they waited a couple of weeks and then they fired him. So this was almost 2 weeks ago that they lost and were eliminated by the Anaheim Ducks. And by the way, VGK is now up 2-0 on the Ducks. So the Edmonton Oilers, and they have had some lean years, but they do have 2-star players as a result of those lean years, because I don't think, I don't watch hockey like it's life or death for me. But I will say, I will watch every once in a while. Like, especially now because it is Stanley Cup playoffs. But the Edmonton Oilers are looking for their 10th head coach in 15 years. Now, part of that is the whole NHL tossing coaches aside like it's, oh, you lost in the second round this year when we were playing for the title, you're gone. I think the only person who has the 3 coaches that have the safest jobs are the Panthers coach, the Rays, the Lightning coach, not the Rays, the Panthers, Lightning, and Rod Brindamore at Carolina. They're probably the 3 safest jobs right now. And I'm sure somebody who's more in tune with the NHL say, oh, this coach and this coach. Okay, yeah. I'm just spitballing here. But he had Chris Knobloch had a pair of Stanley Cup final appearances back-to-back, lost in the first round this year, and he got fired. And his 3-year extension that he had just signed a little while back does not officially begin until July. I mean, he's still going to get paid for it, but, but it's interesting that that he will be getting paid the next 3 years, and it's like you're fired. What about my new contract? What new contract? I just fired you. But they do have to pay him because they're not firing for cause; they're just firing based off of performance. So Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations, General Manager Stan Bowen, acknowledged on Thursday the high rate of turnover, but said he felt another change was needed after Edmonton bowed out in the playoffs in the first round loss to Anaheim, following back-to-back runs to the final in 24 and 25. I mean, yes and no. But you're talking about the toughest playoffs to win in professional sports in the United States. And I have to clarify that because, you're like, hey, winning this is tougher. Yeah, but we're talking United States here or North America. But you're looking at, but Edmonton had a ton of injuries toward the end of the year, and that was mentioned a lot. But, these things happen from time to time. Injuries happen. It's sports. But Bowman didn't lay all the blame on Edmonton's failings on Knobloch. while also insisting he wouldn't be leaning on McDavid or Draisaitl to help choose a fresh voice to get the Oilers back on track. And that's because he's going to keep them updated. But they're not going to be in on the interviews or anything like that, as Bowman said. And basically, Bowman said there's a lot of elements that they're just not privy to, meaning the players. They're not choosing coaches. They don't want to do that. They don't want the pressure of choosing a coach, rightfully so. And I don't think players necessarily should be even, I think you have to understand. I think, especially if you're there for a few years, you get to know the person, you get to know their personality, you get to know their playing style, you get to know this, you get to know that. You actually get to know the player, like, okay, what coach is out there that can work best with him or with these guys that are coming back next year. That's what's important. They don't necessarily have to be in the room, the boardroom, or wherever. And I had to be careful the way I said it, because in the room means the locker room, but it's not. I mean, the interviews aren't going to be in the locker room, but you get the idea. So I just think, so there may be a sense of urgency to win now, which may have been why they got rid of Knobloch, and that's because Connor McDavid's new contract, his new 2-year deal begins in July, and they want to try to keep him long term, and they also want to win with him there. And nothing, and especially with the way that you would think athletes would be, because every sport's different, but especially with hockey, you win a Stanley Cup in Edmonton, you're going to be pretty much, especially if you're the first Canadian team to win a championship and you're Edmonton. So winning a championship in Canada would be a big thing for Canadians, and then in Edmonton, that you were the Edmonton team that did it. You get the idea. But now McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, they expressed concerns about the organization potentially going off course. Edmonton could not establish any momentum this season with poor goaltending and leaky defense plaguing the team. And you could blame that on the fact that it is because of the salary cap. Now, some salary caps are good things, and you get to keep things in tow. And then you may have situations where, oh, by the way, you're up against a cap and you can't afford this player that you've had on your team in the past. So you got to trade them, or you just got to let them walk away in free agency. But now Draisaitl said, I'm concerned because we're not trending in the right direction. We've taken a big step backwards and have to get a grip of this and head back in the right direction. And you know what? And if you want to say if you want to say younger players, for example, nothing gets younger players to play better than having experience. But I don't know their lineup and roster or anything like that. So, it could just be that they just have marginal players that just don't hold up to snuff. But that's just me. But now McDavid said, when you're an average team with high expectations, you're going to be disappointed. We just never found it. fair. I mean, you got a team that was probably one of the top picks to win it all this year. And oh, by the way, you're not winning. But the Oilers finished overall with a 47-30-11 record. By the way, I did say I wanted to do that hockey thing where my bizarro world rules and stuff like that. But they had the league's sixth best offense, scoring 3.44 goals a game. And they also had the Art Ross Trophy winner, McDavid. He had a 138-point campaign, and that's the most points in the season, goals and assists. But they were lacking on defense and all that. But you have to realize that sometimes you got to make that change, and sometimes you might have to make that change at a certain time. Like, for example, the Phillies got rid of Rob Thompson when this team just couldn't find a way out of a paper bag. The Phillies are, I believe, 500 now, right? Let's check the standings on ESPN. I'm sorry, Phillies are 2 games under 500, 9 games out of first, and they are 4.5 back of the wild card, but plenty of time left plenty of time to get things righted. So the one thing I would say is, just like, sometimes you do it at the end of the year so you can, but sometimes you have to do it in the middle of the year. But I think that, the coach deserved a chance to right the ship and everything. It was just that things just didn't work out. And it may be because they have 2 big name superstars on the team, or it just may be, it may be regression, it may be injury, it may be the cap. It could be a million different reasons beyond just, our defense sucked, our goalie sucked. But then again, the Edmonton goalie, he ended up at Pittsburgh. We saw what he did with Pittsburgh against the Flyers. Enough that he got benched after game 3. But that is the NHL news here. And by the way, VGK up 2-0 on Anaheim in the first period. And the Montreal Canadiens, they beat Buffalo 6-3 tonight. They hold the 3-2 lead going into Game 6, which is on Saturday night, which is interesting because you would figure. Okay, I'm going to show my screen here so you can see the Saturday schedule. Whoops, not that one. So there's the Saturday schedule. You would figure. Now, granted, the NHL may be foreshadowing and saying, no way the Ducks win this. Come on, get the hell out of here. You would figure a Game 7 would have precedence over Sabres and Canadiens. But they chose to have the Sabres and the Canadiens at 8 o'clock, even though you got the Ducks and Golden Knights playing a Game 7. Whatever. I'm not in the war room making decisions on the schedule, whatever. But But I find that interesting. But rightfully so. You got a young team in the Sabres who are doing their thing. It's just that maybe they are a year away from really doing damage and winning a cup, possibly. But right now, the Canadians are just, they're up to the challenge. And I just want to check one thing here. Yeah, Montreal has playoff experience. They lost to the Capitals in 5 last year. They did not make it 2 years ago. But yeah, so they have a little more experience, even though the players, I'm sure some of the players that were on last year's team was on this year's team. I'm not going to examine rosters and stuff like that because, also players that may not be playing may be hurt, even though they played in last year's playoffs, for example. But either way, I just found that interesting. But hey, it is what it is, and you got a chance to play in the spotlight there. So, good for them. But, and I think if Buffalo loses Saturday night, let's pretend. I'm not wishing it on them. I'm now a fan without a team in the playoffs, so I can sit here and relax. And Vegas scored quickly on a power play, and it's 3-0. But the one thing I would tell VGK tonight is don't be Minnesota and let your foot off the gas, because guess what? That's how Minnesota lost last night. Minnesota was up 3-0. And oh, by the way, here comes Minnesota was up 3-0 in the first period. Four minutes left in the first period. They were up 3-0 on the Avalanche, and you're thinking, but they ended up. What was a strange series because they had that 9-6 game to start the series, but yeah. So I don't want to say it's over for Anaheim, but it doesn't look good. So I'm just looking to see if there's anything worth mentioning on my phone that popped up. But yeah, so little interesting stuff there. So one last story here. Now, I'm sure this happens from time to time, but it doesn't happen a lot. And I think in Tin Cup, Roy McAvoy, played by Kevin Costner, I think he shows up on time for his tea time, despite being hungover and drinking his ass off the night before. But, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right because I didn't watch any golf today, but Garrick Higo, he was penalized 2 strokes for being late to his Thursday morning tee time in the first round of the PGA Championship at Aronimink, right outside of Philadelphia. Bank Boy, welcome in. Hope you're doing well out there. So he was late 1 minute. And because he wasn't ready to go, and and they have a way of defining being on time and being ready to go. We'll get to that in a second, but Not a good way to start the tournament. You know, you're before you swing for the first time in this major event. Oh, by the way, you're now +2 before you even drive the ball down the first fairway. So he's late 1 minute to his tee time, according to video on ESPN's broadcast. Now, it wasn't because it was an early tee time. It was just because, well, we'll tell you what he was doing in a minute. Higo said, I wouldn't have been late if I knew I was running late. Obviously, this is the first time that's happened. I wasn't quite sure what. I was just happy they allowed me to tee off. Firstly, you know what I mean? I was bummed when he said I had a 2-shot penalty. So, it's kind of like, when you're in school and you're arguing with the teacher because, oh, you're late for class. No, I'm not. Well, you're not sitting down in your desk before when the bell rang to start class. So go get a late slip. But so he discussed the situation in the scoring tent after his round with the PGA of America officials. PGA of America said in a news release that Higo was practicing on the putting green and was not within the area defined as the starting point of his starting time. So the PGA of America's local rules in terms of competition define the starting point of a round on holes 1 and 10 by the rope, gallery stakes, green bike fencing, or blue stakes, blue dots, or blue lines. It depends how they have the course set up. So, there's defined areas that, if you're within these lines, okay, you're not late. Then you get into delaying slow pace of play, even at 7:18 in the morning. But so Higo said, if you know me, then you know I'm very casual and laid back. I don't know. I don't want to be there 10 minutes early. I know that 5 minutes is fine. I thought I had time. I was obviously too casual. Yeah. I think he's going to be there 10 minutes early tomorrow. Now, also, he would be in afternoon tee time because those that start early in round 1, they start in the morning on round 1. They get an afternoon tee time in round 2, and afternoon tee times round 1 play mornings round 2. It's only so that they can balance everything out and everything is even, all that stuff. So, his caddy, Austin Gaugert, was screaming at him to get to the tee box. He was set to tee off last in his grouping with Shawn Michael, I think that is, who hadn't teed off yet, and Michael Brennan. No, not Shawn Michael from WWE. And that would be interesting because he's late 50s, early 60s, and bad back. So he was allowed to remain in the tournament because of an exception to Rule 5.3a, which allows a golfer to arrive at a starting point ready to play no more than 5 minutes late. Kind of like at my old job, and the way that they would charge latenesses. It'd be one code if it's 5 minutes or less being late. And if you're more than 5 minutes late, it was another code. But so that's, Now, as a result of this, he had that 2-stroke penalty. He made a par on that par 4 hole, but with the 2-stroke penalty, it then ends up being a double bogey 6. Now, the one thing is, he finished 1 under par with the penalty. If he didn't get that 2-stroke penalty, he would be in an 8-way tie for the lead right now, because you have 7 golfers at 3 under par right now. But it'll be interesting to see what happens here, because can you imagine losing the PGA by 1 stroke at a Rodham, and oh, by the way, you were 2 minutes late. You know, you had a 2-stroke penalty. Now, McKeel, I think that's pronounced. He's a former PGA Tour winner, PGA Championship winner. He finished 7 over on the round, while Brennan finished 2 over. So you do have that. So you know, it happens from time to time, but you know. So I do want to show you one thing before we go. I got to tinker with this a little bit, but here's some of the things I came up with today. So I'm going to incorporate this one to Saturday's show. I don't know how yet, but I will. But that's in the Preakness colors of black and yellow. And it's Preakness 151 this year. The only thing is they say Pimlico News here. And that's the only thing that I have a problem with. The only problem is I'll say, you know, they're still going to be talking about the Preakness. It's just that they're going to be talking about Pimlico, but it'll be the fact that they're not at Pimlico because they're rebuilding the entire plant. So that was that one. Then you had this one here, which I may use. So that was something I came up with. And, you know, you tinker with the AI and play around a little bit. And, you know, the numbers on the gate, I couldn't care less with that, even though that does bug me a little bit. And then in 3 weeks from Saturday, we have Saratoga hosting the Belmont one final time. And we got the golden hour sun there. You have Saratoga. And I think that's pretty accurate, the grandstand there. So that's little things I came up with there. And I'm probably going to tinker some more with it with other AI things there. So, you know, just things that I came up with. And, you know, and Mike saw a lot of the stupid shit that I was pulling up. Like, for example, like there's actually a chocolate factory in Uranus, Missouri. And what I did was, because they wouldn't let me do, I think it was the Uranus butt cracks. Oh, it's too offensive. So I ended up creating the Uranus Fudgy Wudgies. Because Fudgy, you know, there was a guy who used to work at the Jersey Sewer. He would sell Fudgy Wudgy bars, little chocolate ice cream bars, but, you know, little things like that. But, you know, just having fun with everything. And, you know, so just a quick reminder, once again, also eligible Saturday, 10 a.m. And I think this is going to be that's going to be my permanent one. That's going to replace the also eligible I have. I'm going to tinker around with my settings tomorrow. But that is the regular one. And this is the one that AJ created. And we'll be live Saturday at 10 a.m. Looking at the information from looking at the big race at Laurel Park. I almost said Pimlico there, but that is Pimlico's backdrop. So, but we'll be live Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, looking at that race, and maybe we sneak in a race. Maybe we sneak in the first race as well. We'll see what happens. Time got away from us last 2 weeks ago, so that is going to be it for this show. And I do appreciate each and every one of you for joining me here tonight. And we'll be live again on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And, if that's too early for you, that's fine. Or you don't like the topic, that's fine as well. Join me Monday night at 9 o'clock. And we'll get another Monday edition. Mike will be here on the other side of the table here. And we'll have our usual banter and stuff. And try not to get ourselves in too much trouble, but that's it for the show, and I do appreciate you. And we'll do it Monday or do it Saturday, and hope everybody has a great night, great weekend. If you don't join me Saturday, and first of all, go Phils, and have a great night, have a great weekend. I'll see you guys in the winter